Good evening, and welcome to the Biggs Report. What is the Declaration of Independence? In this document, we find hopes and ideals, dreams of a free land that was a symbol of liberty to the world, seen as a bright future by the writer and editors of that declaration. This document sparked our revolution, but also a revolution in political affairs yet again in the 1860s, as the statement, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights," clashed with the practice of slavery in the United States engendered by that very document. This dichotomy could not stand. Either the Declaration itself would be thrown out, or slavery would be, for there was in the end no room for both. More than a vision of a land of freedom, equality, and rule of law for all, the Declaration was a bold, antagonistic political statement. It was a cold shock to a British monarch. It was a black and white statement of the sovereignty of these United States of America. We have as our foundation an idea that goes back in time 100 years before the founding of our nation, a fundamental attachment of man to the land he owns, works, and on which he lives. A guarantee of the rights of a free community, of free men, the ability to stand a government over them that represents their will and view. This was what Thomas Jefferson relied on, and what Abraham Lincoln relied on as well, for he railed against the move by slavery advocates to legalize slavery by force of federal government in all states by de facto measures like the Dred Scott decision. Sovereignty is something for which men will die. It is a pride, feeling, and love so profound that it goes to the heart of who we are as a people. Its teaching predated our birth as a nation, for the first colonists set up independent governments and established the rule of law. They negotiated treaties for themselves and established governments according to the will of and best understanding of the people who had to live under them. For us today, that sovereignty has been prescribed. That which our forefathers bled and died for, what they were ruined for, lost sons, daughters, wives, and homes for, has been freely handed away with no more notice than the daily list of petty crimes that roll across a TV screen in the course of a day's news. Indeed, far more interest has been shown to our president's dog than to his signing away an established constitutionally protected aspect of our national sovereignty with a mere stroke of a pen. On April 2, 2009, at the G20 summit, the President of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama, agreed that, from this day forth, a body that is not elected by the people of the United States of America, nor controlled by any person appointed by anyone so elected, shall possess sovereign power over the activities of individuals here in the United States. Hereafter, the FSF, or Financial Stability Forum, now to be known as the Financial Stability Board, will set agreed-upon high standards that cover regulation of all financial instruments, all systemically important companies in the world, and will set executive pay compensation levels and executive pay policy for all firms. This organization shall set tough new principles on pay and compensation to support sustainable compensation schemes and the corporate social responsibility of all firms. Extend regulations and oversight to all systemically important financial institutions, instruments, and markets. I might remind you that the Constitution forbids anybody but the United States Congress from enacting any legislation or indeed regulation with the force of law. It is beyond the framework of the Constitution of the United States, in defense of which President Obama swore his oath of office, even that the Congress outsource regulatory activities to such bodies as the EPA and OSHA. How much more of a complete abrogation of that document is it to allow a foreign body to regulate U.S. companies with the force of law? And if, I ask, that body of esteemed gentlemen and great economic minds in Europe makes a regulation or a law that is against the interests of the people of the United States, who shall we vote out of office? To whom can we complain? From who can we demand some modicum of accountability on behalf of the people who are the real sovereign of this, our land? In the words of Samuel Adams, "Tell us whether our pious and generous ancestors bequeathed to us the miserable privilege of having the rewards of our honest industry, the fruits of those fields which they purchased and bled for, wrested from us at the will of men over whom we have no check. For that is precisely what is at issue here today. Citizens of this country shall have the fruits of their labor wrested for them, by regulation, by a body over which they have no check whatever. Are we not ashamed? Can we now look upon the memorials that dot our land to those, the great generation that founded this nation, without hanging our heads in mortification? How dare we give up that which they bled for? How dare we give up that which unborn generations patiently expect from us? A sovereignty and freedom unspoiled, untattered, unblemished. That banner of sovereignty hangs a little lower today. Abraham Lincoln had this to say about the generation from which we have inherited this nation. They, those histories of the Revolution, were pillars of the Temple of Liberty, and now that they have crumbled away, that temple must fall unless we, their descendants, supply the places with other pillars. A man named Limbaugh used to go about the country giving a speech that read in part, "Of those 56 who signed the Declaration of Independence, 9 died of wounds or hardships during the war. 5 were captured and imprisoned, in each case with brutal treatment. Several lost wives, sons, or entire families. One lost his 13 children. 2 wives were brutally treated. All were at one time or another the victim of manhunts and driven from their homes. 12 signers had their homes completely burned. 17 lost everything they owned. Yet not one defected or went back on his pledged word. Their honor and the nation they sacrificed so much to create is still intact." For what did these men sacrifice so much? For our generation to enact regulation without representation, with barely a whisper of protest? What is left of us that we begin with a roar and die with hardly a whimper? Are these things meaningless then? Sovereignty, property rights, protection under the Constitution, the authority of the United States Congress, that we cherish them so little? I do not believe that we are so base and weak. I do not believe that the inheritors of the greatest country on the earth, the greatest in the history of man, will give way so easily what sparked our fight for independence to begin with. Abraham Lincoln said, "As the patriots of '76 did to the support of the Declaration of Independence, so to the support of the Constitution and the laws, let every American pledge his life, his property, and his sacred honor. Let every man remember that to violate the law is to trample on the blood of his father, and to tear the charter of his own and his children's liberty." We will not tear the charter of our liberty, my friends. We will not trample the honor of those who came before us. We will not stand against this act. We will stand against it, as we have stood against all such acts, and we will achieve the same success that has always been our fate if we but show the will to do it.